2013 regular meeting of the Medford Township Council. I'll begin with the open public meeting statement. Notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting a copy of the agenda on the bulletin board at the municipal building and on the township website, filing a copy of the agenda in the office of the township clerk at the municipal building, forwarding a copy of the agenda to the central record in the Burlington County Times, and forwarding written notice to each person who has requested copies of the regular meeting schedule. All the above posting, filing, and mailing have taken place on the 14th of June, 2013. Would you all rise for the flag salute, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call roll, please.
Mr. Beanstalk?
Here.
Mr. Pace?
Here.
Mr. Watson? Deputy Mayor Bonney?
Here.
Mayor Checkline?
Here. All right, next item on the agenda is communication, scheduling matters, agenda, presentations, and amendments to the agenda. First item is a proclamation for Dominic Mezziano. And is Mr. Mezziano here?
Don't believe so.
All right, well, this is a proclamation to acknowledge Dominic Messiano for 42 years of public safety service. He is retiring at the end of this month after 42 years of dedicated service as a first responder, beginning at the age of 14 as a volunteer firefighter, and also volunteering and working with several emergency medical services agencies, the New Jersey Forest Fire Service, and the State Department of Environmental Protection as a deputy conservation officer. So we'll be issuing this proclamation to Mr. Messiano for his dedicated service to the township and to the community as a whole. Communications, we don't need a, do we need a voice vote on that, or no? Okay. Communications.
The only items I have are scheduling items for today, Mayor. Resolution item number 8, the liquor renewals. There's a question that originally we were going to pull and put into exec, but after further investigation, it should be moved to discussion under council.
That's fine.
We'll pull that one. The deadline for the New Jersey American Water, I guess it's the DEP rules waiver request, is
Right.
the end of the month, so if council wants to discuss that, we need to add that to discussion
Correct.
because of the timing. Under hazard mitigation planning, under manager's report, Lieutenant Wagner had a conflict, so that'll be moved to July 16th.
Okay.
The approval of a roadway permit, just, it wasn't in the public portion, but in the application was June 22nd. I don't know if council picked that date up. That date, they're not doing it. They didn't need the prerequisite for county approval. So it's just the 3 dates that we did announce publicly that are up for approval, but in case council caught that other date. And then I'm asking the council to add under manager's report, the Cranberry Hill parking lot status and to the bill we pulled at the last meeting to authorize payment. It's a partial, we still have retainage, and I can get the timing of when the payment's going to happen for the corrective action.
All right, and one other item, the discussion item on the abatement, on the rehabilitation and redevelopment zone exemption abatement program. We're going to pull that after reviewing the draft ordinance. There are some issues with some of the language in there, and we need to revise that language prior to having a discussion about the matter. Is that okay with everybody?
So we're not going to consider it all tonight?
No, next meeting it will be considered. We need to work out some of the language.
All I would ask is council keep this tight, just because you have opportunities in this town that I think we're going to look at what council told us to bring incentive, and we want to keep that moving.
No, it'll be kept on track. It's just that some of the language there needs to be revisited as well. So I think that's about it in terms of attendance.
In terms of communication, we're not pulling number 8 out, or
We're pulling it out to discuss it, because there's still renewals you may want to act on in accordance
Got it.
statute.
Right.
But it's a public
We
discussion.
have a public.
We initially thought it should go into executive due to the potential litigation, well, the current litigation
Right.
with NVE, but after researching it further, who the license is actually assigned to,
The license
is not
is
tied
a
to the
different
litigation.
corporation.
Oh,
It can't be discussed as
Right.
part of the redevelopment project.
got it. So we'll have it in public. All right. I have a communication issue I wanted to add. I got an email from Mr. Hartwig regarding our task force from last year. He reminded me about a number of different, basically he sent me a reminder of the recommendations of the task force, a number of which I think we've acted on, some formally, some not formally, but I would like to bring it to the attention of everyone here. I'll forward the email to everyone and open up, I would like to pursue some of these, make determinations as to whether or not, we want to take action on some of these things. So I think we kind of, we started off well, but I think we need to make sure that we act, make a decision to act one way or the other on these recommendations. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
So we're not going to discuss it tonight?
No,
Okay.
no, I just moved forward, I would say sometime in the next couple of weeks.
That's fine. All right, anything else? Fine. All right, and scheduling. Everyone should know, I think we've advertised it, but just a reminder, June 29th, Saturday, is the fireworks scheduled for Freedom Park. It's actually more than just fireworks this year. There's a whole day of activities planned, starting at 2 p.m. There's kids' activities. There's going to be a beer garden like there was last year. And I think that there's also going to be a medal ceremony for some veterans at 6 p.m. in the park on one of the stages. I don't know whether it's the main stage or the other stage. Do you know that? Main stage? Okay. And then obviously at about 8:45, we'll kick off at the main stage with announcements and what prior to the fireworks happening, which is probably about 9:15, 9:20 is usually when the fireworks kick off. And next item is the next meeting of the Township Council is July 2nd, 2013, 7:30 p.m. here at the Public Safety Building. Is that it for those matters? Okay. All right. Next item is approval of minutes from the June 4th, 2013 regular and executive meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those minutes? Are there any additions, corrections to those minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve the June 4th, 2013 regular and executive session minutes?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Like that?
Did you want to remind people of the different format that they're in now?
What do you mean different
Well, we're releasing the,
At the last meeting, Mayor, the council passed the executive minutes release policy. Council has before it tonight, based on the new policy, two sets of executive minutes. One is an unredacted and one is a redacted. Upon approval tonight, the redacted release for public will go on the website, just like regular minutes. You'll see blacked out spots because they're still protected under the law. Everything else that was discussed will now be available if the public wants to get them. And again, you still have a right to file an OPRA, but based on the number of OPRA requests we get, we're trying to get more information out there for the public to access, or at least we can provide a link. So that's what we're doing.
yeah, so the idea is, obviously, right, get the information out.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Next item, manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. First item is revised compensation matters, non-union benefits. Council's aware we've been working with the collective bargaining units and settling contracts. The non-union are not covered under collective bargaining. Typically, it's ordinance or policy. Most of the benefits here have always been done through the policy manual. In the short term, obviously we want to model a lot of what we're doing with the bargaining units to be consistent and equitable. So we're putting those measures into place. But I also want to in the next few months, put it in front of you as an ordinance. Although I think within the manager's purview, there should be some authority, I still think that the overall compensation is tied to the budgetary process, and so it should be a much, not a difficult process, but a much more open process in changing compensation of the non-union by ordinance. So just so you're aware that that's what I'm going to recommend going forward. Council. So I don't know if council has any questions on that, or but that's. So if you remember the last meeting, I changed back, or 2 meetings ago, I changed back the overtime policy for non-union as how much they can carry on compensation days. You know, that I've reduced it, but in the future, if we wanted to get tighter or expand, I don't know that, you know, again, it has liability attached to it as far as potential future liability in the payout of compensation. So my feeling is that should be dictated through an ordinance, so that there's a process, there's a hearing, and any changes are done by ordinance.
What do you envision the ordinance looking like in terms of the policy? Is it going to be to tie it to union compensation? Or is it going to be specific?
It's specific to non-union, but it's basically, you know, vacation days, sick days, personal days, all that will be done by ordinance.
So with a specific number?
With specific
number of vacation
So just
days.
as we're doing with the unions, where we're now having 2 tiers of employees, future employees may have a different benefit level, the same thing's being applied at the non-union level, but we don't have, the document is really the personnel manual, and I think it should be tight, I'm using the word tighter, but by ordinance, to protect the township and the overall policymakers
Right.
in that process.
So if the numbers change for union employees, we would amend the ordinance.
If council chooses to amend the ordinance.
Right.
You know, when the law changed, everything was applied to the non-union as soon as the law changed.
Right.
They were not covered under collective bargaining. And even if there was an ordinance, it doesn't necessarily mean they would be protected under that ordinance. They're still non-union employees that don't have bargaining rights and that type of protection. But it makes the process more, again, a manager, whether myself or any manager, can't on a whim just change benefits for the sake of changing benefits. And so I want to put that in place to make sure it's an ordinance process so that any recommendation is publicly communicated with a hearing and then changed, if council agrees with that change. So that's where we're going with that. The second item is budget implementation. Again, similar, there's typically an annual salary ordinance or resolution that implements after the budget's adopted, typically for your non-union again. Medford we have not done one since 2010. It should be done annually. Medford's historically did it by ordinance, which means each year you do an ordinance change for the salary, and all you're doing is identifying the position and the rate. So whatever, you know, the budget gets adopted, and then you come in and you do the ordinance, and it'll say manager make X, clerk X. You know, that's how it's done. There is a cost, obviously, to constantly doing an ordinance amendment each year. So in 2 other communities I serve, what we did is, and you can do this, you do the ordinance by a salary range, and then after the budget's adopted, you do the salary level by resolution. So you make the range wide enough that the salaries work within that. If there's promotions and things, there's a little more flexibility, but council still has to, by resolution, once the budget's adopted, approve the resolution for setting those salaries for non-union for that annual period. So, so again, I'm going to recommend that. Currently, right now, we have to put another ordinance in front of you. I'm asking council again tonight, and I set up the ordinance to be the range. We adopt that, and then we set the salary resolution by position. And then each year, unless the range changes, you don't really need to amend the ordinance. You just simply do the resolution, which again is a public process, but it's permitted to be done that way as well. So, any questions on that?
That's a good idea.
Okay, next item is the Burlington County Joint Insurance Fund renewal period. We are part of the Burlington County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund and the municipal excess liability, which pretty much most towns throughout New Jersey are in some type of joint insurance fund. Our membership is due to expire at the end of the year, and we We provided some information to council regarding the renewal, and if council would like a representative to appear at the next meeting, I would need to know. I've been involved with 3 GIFs throughout the state, and they've all been effective and efficient in serving municipal needs. I'm recommending we stay with the same, but council has the right to explore other options, i.e. the private market if it chose. So I want to just make sure we meet that renewal intent deadline. So I'm letting you know now, if there's anything council wants us to do, we need the next few weeks to get that done for council.
I mean, I don't see any reason why we're going to change. I mean, at this point, it seems like you're
I just know the complexities of it. When I have analyzed in the past a private coming in, and there's so much you get through a joint insurance fund that the private divvies up, may not be able to provide in some fashion. It's a very complex process. I would at least suggest you have your JIF people come in. Oh,
Just to let you know, I was at the JIF meeting today. It was our monthly executive meeting. They were talking about the renewing towns, and Mr. Florenza and Mr. Miola will be contacting us shortly to see about coming out. They do want to meet with each renewing town if you guys are willing.
I think at a minimum, you have them come in, just like we have, and let them.
Now, how much is, let's say a bunch of towns don't renew, how much of an impact does that have on us? Is that something we need to keep an eye on?
In some cases, we'd be okay if some towns didn't.
Got it.
And we know who they are.
How long have we been in the JIF?
I believe since 1991.
Is that the whole time that the JIF's been around?
We may have joined 1 year after it was established.
And ours, the Burlington JIF now is 26 members
Yes.
out of 42 municipalities in
39.
Burlington County.
Mhm.
There are, some of the Burlington County towns are in other JIFs. Medford Lakes, for example, is in the Camden County JIF.
Evesham's in another JIF.
Evesham,
Morristown.
Morristown, Mount Laurel, and Willingboro are the professional management.
Mount Laurel's with us. They've
Okay,
been with
right.
us for
Willingboro, I'm sorry.
3 years. Yeah, Willingboro's not with us. Pemberton just moved over to the Brookfield JIF.
Yeah. So,
I have no problem with them coming and making or providing a presentation, as long as it's streamlined. I mean, we all attended the required session as it relates to the JIF. Again,
the training
If we keep it for the
alone,
sake of the public, I mean, it's.
yeah, so I would at least invite Paul and Paul to come to the next meeting and just talk about it, and have, any questions about it.
Well, have we investigated the other JIFs?
It's not that we haven't. If you do switch JIFs, you will get hit with a larger assessment by switching and moving. Pemberton, although when they came into the Bronco JIF, they got hit with coming in. So there is an upfront higher cost to move. We can look at it, and I'll tell you the one I would look at is the one with the professional manager, council manager. That to me is we're a council manager form of government. Right now, there's only 4 towns in that, but I don't know that at this point there'd be a value an economic value to change. We get hit up front with a new assessment moving in to that JIF. I'm almost positive, I mean, they'll run the numbers, but I'm sure there will be an assessment on top of the move. That's the typical
It
process.
seems like there'd be less benefit to being in a JIF with so few members, because you're not.
Well, everything's still based on experience and things of that nature, so you want to look at all those factors. But we can address that over the next few weeks.
Is that a newer JIF? Is that why there's?
No, it's been, I don't know how long it's been around, but it's been a while. I mean, I've been in this JIF, the Mid-Jersey JIF, and the PMM, the professional management JIF. They all operate very similar. It's just up to town. I think Medford Lakes, like I said, I don't know why they went to Camden County when they did. But I think
They were in Camden County at one point. I think they're in another one now.
so. I'll look a little bit into that, and in the meantime, we'll invite our current member
The executive director's
professionals
office.
to come in and speak to council while you're considering. And then send me any email and any questions. Next item. Boards and Committees Handbook. Council, we've been developing a draft handbook that council's aware of. There are 2 remaining decisions that needed to be made. In the document, there were a blank to limits as the number of boards a person can sit on. So I didn't know what count, do they want 1? Now remember, we have less boards now, so do you want 1 per board or 2 or? Should be inside 1? Yeah. 1, okay. That takes care of that. And then the second item is, we did the Local Government Institute now that council used as a considering factor for being appointed. I don't know that you want to make that a mandatory prerequisite, but we could put language in there that preference may be given to those who take the Local Government Institute. Because again, we're trying to, I think council's position was they got a base knowledge of what the government is, how it operates, and to use that tool, through the appointment process.
I also think it's a better way to from my perspective, it opened up the interview process to a lot of people who maybe wouldn't have interviewed because they're not necessarily involved in local politics and that sort of thing. And we got more, I thought we had a wider pool of applicants as a result of that. And to me, that's what I'm looking for, more participation. So I like having that as, a way of getting more people to participate and know that they can be a part of it.
I'd be more interested in putting it on the back end if you are appointed to a board within, most of the boards are 2 or 3 years. At some point during that time frame, you should attend.
But then you put an additional thing on them, and they're already, presumably they're spending some time volunteering.
Again, you're right, yes. The answer to that question is yes.
My reasoning just has to do with broader, but I just want more participation.
That's so what?
I want more people in town to get involved.
Agreed.
I like making it, giving it more weight as opposed to making it an addition. I'm concerned we might lose people. And that, and we have the ultimate decision on whether to appoint them or not.
Yeah, I agree.
Giving them weight that gives us the discretion to start helping.
So, what I'm hearing, the consensus would be to put it in as a preference. Council will give more weight if you have taken it and you're, not making it mandatory.
Well, and then we're going to do that. We need to make it clear that it isn't a prerequisite.
Well, it seems to me it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's sort of a carrot saying if you do this, then you'll get preference. On the other hand, it's
Not necessarily the case.
it might be an obstacle that people might look at and say, well, gee whiz, we don't take that, I always thought I bother applying.
But council had, this year you did not take everybody who applied who had the LGI.
How about if we
No.
put something along the lines that says a good starting point might be kind of a recommendation?
Or you can leave it out.
Or just leave it
You
out.
can leave it out for
I mean, I'm just
now.
concerned that, that wide participation that we're looking for, I mean,
Or you could end up squelching it a little bit.
well, that's my concern is people saying, well, gee whiz, they attended and I didn't attend, and I might as well not even apply for a board position.
I think the fact of the matter is though that we are going to give more weight to those people
We are.
because they've showed a desire to be more involved and they've learned about the process. So I think being upfront about it, put it in there isn't necessarily.
There's no question that we're going to. I mean, the question is, do we want to leave it unspoken? That we just from the standpoint of, again, somebody who may not be as tuned in and.
Well, and then you,
Oh, sorry. My suggestion then is council's not sure, we'll leave it out for now. It's a manual, it can be adjusted down the road.
We're only 1 of 4 up here.
No, but-
I agree.
Okay. The consensus I see out of it. Okay with that?
Yeah, I was just looking at the definition of squelch and realized that meant to say squelch.
Okay. All right, the next item is approval of a roadway permit for Medford Sunrise Road. The date solicitation is Saturday, June 14th, September 28th, or is that right?
It was the September 28th,
September 14th.
September 14th.
September 14th, September 28th. coin drop at the intersection of Main and Union Bank Streets, Todd Boulevard, and Tucker Road, and Saturday, October 11th at the intersection of Main and Union Bank Streets. Everything has been vetted and it's recommended for approval.
Do you know what this is? What it's for?
Chickens.
Get an earlier start this year.
So if council's okay, a voice vote on that?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, and the last item I added, just the Cranberry Hall update. For the public that was at the last meeting, we pulled the bill list for Cranberry Hall. It was not an overlay, it was a seal coat. If people had been over to the town, the seal coat mix was not done very well, and then the job came out poorly. We held the bill pending what the contractor was going to do. The contractor gave two options. One, he would correct it per the bid spec, or for if the town paid for material at no additional cost for manpower and mobilization, they would actually do they would pave it, a 1-inch coat, which is actually a better solution. Council came out, passed a resolution to accept the change order, and I'm recommending, this was a partial, we're recommending the partial payment. There's still $30,000 retainage that has not been paid until the job is done. They're going to mobilize on July 3rd and then pave on July 5th. The town's closed the 4th and 5th, so that's where we're at with that project. So if council's okay, I'd like to at least release the partial payment.
We'll hold 30,000 back, it's plenty of leverage.
No, I'm fine with it.
Okay, that's all.
Mr. Manager, can I just go back to the roadway permit for a second? The date in your report, I think it said June 14th.
Yeah, it's my report's a typo.
To September.
Yeah, go to the application, that's what.
Yes,
that's
that's
what-
right.
9/14, 9/28, and October
I
11th.
already have to,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Next item is discussion items. And first up is the Burlington County Municipal Park Development Grant. And I believe that Mr. Peter Callis is here to discuss some options.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe the manager circulated a report that I prepared just to give you in advance of the meeting a brief summary of several projects to be considered. I did these, the priority level was basically, as I explained, the readiness of the project, community support at, groups that we've been working with in the past, obviously compliance with the grant regulations. And so before you can see that the first project was the Hartford Bike Trail system. This would be in Hartford Crossing Park, through the woods, an off-road bike trail that would be created. The area is designated as open space over 3 acres. We would have some DEP wetlands issues, but I think that, they would be mitigated fairly quickly because the area is designated open space. The primary money would be used, the beavers have really been busy up there, so we have some water issues, so we would have to build like footbridges, pedestrian bridges, bike bridges over certain waterways. But there are a multitude of community groups that do biking that would commit the volunteer time to clear some of the other trails. There's other infrastructure improvements that we would make primarily to the parking lot of the girls' softball complex. It's a gravel lot. It's been in need of attention for quite a while. So we would include that in the context of this grant application. And then also to build, not a bathroom building per se, but a small building where we would house like porta potty structures. Not only would that benefit the bike trail, but this would also benefit the girls' softball program and NYA baseball, because the upper fields there and the limitations of the bathrooms in the building are such. But again, the main concern about building a more permanent bathroom building is just, all this right now, bathroom maintenance is deferred to the NYEA. Not to besmirch the efforts that they've made, but, we've had a couple issues with them in maintenance of the building aspects of the agreement that we have with them. So that basically summarizes the first one. The second one is a plethora of things that we would put under the umbrella of Freedom Park improvements. First would be, as the mayor and several council members had mentioned at the last meeting, we are at the point in the lifespan of the park where we need to make additional replacements of the playground equipment, but under the context that we just called it a rehabilitation of the playground. We would be able to use the grant funds to obtain equipment, which is very expensive, unfortunately. I'm also recommending that we would replace the mulch, safety surfacing with a recycled rubber product. It's what we use at the handicap playground at Fort Medford. Number one, it is expensive to install, but the back-end maintenance costs are reduced. The safety factor can't be replaced because it's the best product that's on the market currently. As I also mentioned at the last meeting, part of this project would be a new fairgrounds type pavilion. I'm recommending it would be installed in somewhere within the context of Freedom Park, given the demand that we've had, for rentals on this type of thing. We already have the infrastructure in the park in terms of parking, restroom buildings. So as opposed to building it at, say, a Cow Point, where we have to put all that new infrastructure in place, we could readily adapt the scenario there. As a part of this overall grant application, we would do some parking lot enhancements, but not on the main parking lot, but on the alternative parking lot, which is over by the skate park and the garden area. And then also the Gill Road entrance to the park, which is frequently quite busy with people who utilize the dog park. And we've got a little bit of a problem with the mix of the kids who play on the sports fields there. We would work on the Gill Road signage and some fencing there to create a safer atmosphere with that mixed use between the dog park and the athletic fields. We haven't, pending council's direction, we haven't put a lot of money into, budgets yet, but if council was so inclined, if there was, we came in under the 250 budget on the other amenities, that, we'd maybe look at a cent piece or two that we would put into the skate park to start filling in the open area. We only filled out about 8,000 or 30,000 square feet, so this is just like a prefab type of piece you can buy right here on the market that we would install. And again, that's a secondary thing only if there was, just to fill out a $250,000 grant application. The third project is the canoe trail. I just got a report from Bernie Mayer, who was the de facto head of the trail committee for a number of years. While the trail is passable north of Medford Park from Branch Street up to Kirby's Mill, it's very difficult unless you're a truly experienced paddler to navigate that. His initial assessment was that, it's beyond the scope of the abilities of the Township Public Works staff. Expertise-wise, this doesn't even count time-wise, so we may need to bring in an outside firm to clear that. But the original intent was also to clear further north of Kirby's Mill so that we could connect up further along the Rain-Cocos, because past the Lumberton area, Camp Ironwood, it's pretty much clear sailing there up. And just in terms of favorability to the county, this coincides with the county goal to create, recreational opportunities along the Rain-Cocos. They've actually acquired a piece of property outside of Medford to create a landing a little bit north, so I don't see how they could reflect negatively, because this would go along with a stated objective of theirs. Fourth project is Benday Park. It's by far, the busiest athletic complex that we have because it's the athletic turf field. It gets used by a multitude of youth sports, primarily NYA soccer, but the girls field hockey program plays there, boys and girls lacrosse, other outside soccer clubs going up into adult programming. What we did not anticipate was that, putting that synthetic turf in place, the demand on the restrooms in the building, it's on septic. So we're having issues, the septic field capabilities, probably should be addressed. We've had a couple situations where we've had some overflows out there, which creates a public health hazard. Also, part of the grant would be used to the extent possible that we would do some modifications to the parking lot to try to create some more parking spaces during high times, the chief can attest, we have people parking on 531. So it does create a kind of hazardous situation. But again, we already have other existing infrastructure there. I mean, the lights are pretty good, the fields, the LA is doing a pretty good job on the fields there. And then, we'll be coming back to council with a program for a sponsorship program, because we already have a local resident who owns a construction firm who's interested in, quote, adopting the building to make the rehab on the building itself. And lastly, I have summarized here Bunning Field. Throughout the last couple of years, and the council had actually discussed this, I think, residents have come to you well over a year ago about the conditions of the grandstands there. Looked at this with Scott Taylor. He agreed with my initial assessment. The grandstands, while they have not historical per se, but there's a lot of history to the field, and a lot of public sentiment in favor of the grandstands. They're really at a point where it's almost a demolition is inevitable unless we undertake a historic renovation. When we would take a renovation of that nature, now we have to make it compliant with regulations in 2013, which would mean we have to make the whole set of bleachers accessible to the handicap. The roof that's over it would have to withstand, hurricane-type wind loads, which means basically a total rebuild. An investment of this amount of money that would take to do that just has to be mitigated with the cost-benefit ratio. And, over the last couple of years, NYU baseball has seen a decrease in the numbers of middle school age baseball. The field in and of itself is pretty much too small for an adult league type of use because of proximity of the houses. So if we were to do it, we'd have to basically build like a huge wall in right field, which would be an added expense. And then the site itself, just smack dab in the middle of a residential neighborhood, comes with parking limitations and other constraints. So while we budgeted this out, if the council, desired to go that way, again, you're looking at, we pretty much using the whole grant just for one field, which at this time is really only used by Memorial Middle School for practice for their baseball teams. So that summarizes where we are in the context of projects to present to you tonight for your consideration. I feel with the resources that Chris would be able to provide me that we can formulate on any of these projects a great application and meet the new deadline, which has been pushed back to June 28th. Thank you, County, and Dave, for the fireworks, but we'll get it done.
Thank you guys. It's a good list, and I think the projects meet what my goal was to draft the recreation. So I appreciate the list. On the canoe trail, you talked about clearing the disturbances from the park north, but then you said that originally it was anticipated to also include north of Kirby's Mill.
Right.
For what you've included there, would we be able to do both of that, or is it just the one?
Well, the original, you can see the original estimate, which I transmitted, was only $150,000 for this project.
Right.
Like I said, I haven't really costed out the service, per se, but I would think if we had, with Scott Taylor and some other professionals, assistants, talking to a contractor who, would render this kind of service to try to get a ballpark figure. We could up the budget on that if you wanted to put all the money into just the canoe trail project.
But the 150 is just to clear the disturbances on the existing park?
Right, but, even Chris walked it with Mr. Mayor, what was it, several weeks ago?
Back in April.
Yeah, and I don't think that the extent of the trees that came down between Branch Street and Kirby's Mill where they are today. And, all these rains and wind events have not helped the situation at all.
Well, as I look down the list here, it seems to me that, and again, it will depend on how we can structure the application, but it seems to me the priorities are Hartford crossings, I mean, the areas that get the most use, you know, the baseball or the softball complex, gets a lot of use. I mean, that building is not in the best of shape, the bathrooms are not. I understand that the softball people, they went and they renovated the bathrooms, didn't
Yeah, well, the building, the MYA owns the building.
they? Right.
And there's only, in the bathrooms, there's only one toilet for girls and one toilet for boys.
Right, but I thought that they went and they did some renovation on that recently, and they put stalls in.
No, they've actually, what they do is they rent porta potties, and then they let the girls use the,
Because I talked to the softball commissioner, Paul
well,
Brown.
if they did, I mean, it's their building, it's not necessarily.
Yeah, they
should
put
share
some,
that.
they put
Yeah,
some money.
that's
into it.
possible, because to be blunt, they're having problems, and they're asking the utility department to constantly come out and correct it. We're like, it's your building, we can
Yeah.
only go so far to try to get that pipe clear.
Yeah, I think they
So
did that.
maybe that's a possibility.
I think they did some work recently on the bathrooms, and my understanding is they're much improved from where they were. But right, it's their building.
And that's where I thought that if we put, you know, under the context of the biking, you know, there would be up on the upper hill where the two little league fields are, the newer fields that we put in. If we put, you know, like porta potty building there, it'll take off some of the pressure on that one softball building, which isn't, you know, really where the program is today. You know, it's not, you're absolutely right, it's not suitable, but we don't own that building, so
Right.
technically we can't expend public dollars in that building.
I mean, looking at that would be a priority, Freedom Park, obviously, and then Bendy, because Bendy is, I mean, the use out there is just exploding. And again, I mean, that building is, I mean, the bathrooms aren't in the best shape of anything, and they're horrible.
Right,
And the
well,
steps out there, Randy and I were out there, I was out there one day at a soccer game, and, I mean, the steps had warped and got up, and I called him, and he came out with a screw gun, and we screwed down the trail, because it was dangerous, and people would have gotten hurt. So, I mean, I think I look at those as priorities, if we can split this grant, sort of between those areas. I mean, I don't know whether we have to make it specific to one
no,
particular project, or we
No.
can split it up amongst projects. But I think those are all good projects. In terms of funding, I mean, the question we have to answer with regard to funding is, what's the long-term viability of that? I mean, are we going to keep it as, I mean, obviously it's a township property, but the question is, are we going to maintain it or bring it back to the state it once was if it's not getting the use? You know, and given its location, you know, right there smack dab in the middle of residential areas, it doesn't have parking, really adequate parking. So the question is, are you going to expend these funds to bring it back to the state where it once was, just because so it would be nice to have it like that? But if it's not getting used, I don't really see the point. I mean, having it as a backup field or as a field that, you know, people can go to a pickup game on, that's fine. I don't have a problem with maintaining it to some extent that way. But, you know, to go and expend a lot of money on rehabilitating bleachers and whatnot, I just don't, I don't see it, at least right now.
Well, also, whatever council decides off of this list, as was suggested, I believe Mr. Love, we can prepare for the future, we can set up this program using the information provided, set up for next year, assuming the county continues the program and the council's going to support application of that program. So if you set your priorities now, what I'm saying, suggesting you set up a 2-year cycle so that we're ready to go next year.
My comment on this list, and I think that's a good idea, is having things in the queue and see what comes up in the next year as well. But first of all, my preference would be, you know, the one that we dare not mention, which is take the $250,000 and pay down some debt. But since we can't do that, heaven forbid you ask a politician to give you money to pay down the debt that they've accrued. I feel like we're getting a better return on investment for number one, because we've got active involvement, and this is a Hartford Bike Trail. We've got volunteers that are willing to put in sweat equity. So here we've got a combination of tax dollars and volunteerism. I feel like I'm getting the maximum return on investment for that money right there. So I would have a higher level of priority for a project that involved volunteer I really, and it does address, you know, my girls are in the softball program for years, and there's definitely a need for more facilities over there, so having a separate area, I think it's appropriate. And it's not just meant for the kids that are in there, you have people from all over the place that are in that are part of the county. As far as the other items, I mean, Bendy Park is a liability that we have, so if it's possible to use those funds for that, and what Frank was saying makes sense. I happen to have spent much of my youth on the Brandywine River. You know, we used to go canoeing down that all the time. I like that project, that appeals to me. It's that type of recreation, you know, I think is a good use of people's time. My priorities right now are probably dealing with liabilities that we have, and I'm not sure that that's a present liability or that that's something where, you know, we want to try and target money towards things that we really need to address in shorter order. So while I appreciate that they may be more receptive to that, I think we have to probably make the applications based on what our priorities are. You know, I appreciate the Freedom Park things, but you use a comment in there, like throwing some extra things in there to fill out the grant. That really, I don't like that. I don't like to spend money because it's there, right? Well, I do, but that's what's my money, not when it's other people's money.
One example is the fireworks. They're renting 2 stage facilities. One of them's coming from a town in Camden County that, quite honestly, it's expensive. And that town's trying to recover funds, I get it, but at the same time, we're a municipality, you know, and so the number of events that are used there and you know, in the future. So there's some value to doing
Right,
that.
sure.
The other thing you should consider is, we've not talked too much about it, but the potential of what we've looked at this site for, and having overflow parking working both
Right.
ways. And so if anything, I would highly suggest we consider an skate park parking area to enhance that.
I don't disagree with the need that parking arrangement over there is problematic, but I mean, if I have to set priorities, then it's probably not. You know, that's something that when you talk about having things queued up, that to me, that's not your one priority. Again, the thing I like the most here is the fact that one of these projects we've got, you know, it may not be, I don't know what the level of investment is from volunteers, but to me, I maximize my return on investment that way. You know, by having people that are also going, so I'm not just taking money and paying it out. We've got other people that are willing to contribute, and so we're getting more bang for how much that way.
Well, this constituent group, I mean, they're, where I live, you know, they basically taken it's a park that's split between county and municipality. You know, they created all the trails themselves. You know, unfortunately, the county doesn't want them there anymore. But we, you know, with Chris's assistance, we worked on a foundation grant application earlier this year and got quite a few letters of support from groups all over South Jersey that would come in and provide us with equity. It was a very small grant, $10,000, but, you know, we could leverage it with equal amount, at least, of value of that sweat equity of the project.
Plus the idea, frankly, you know, we've made a commitment to, where possible, have bike access on roads that we're repaving. So if we're able to use that to extend that access, I mean, you know, just right now, it's more than just a passive recreation, right? There's a lot of people that are engaged in that, so that's just part of having a healthier lifestyle.
There has been studies that actually biking facilities, including trail systems, contribute to the economics of the towns that they're situated in. Just for council aware that there is another benefit to those facilities, and that's driving economics. People are going to come and spend money when they're done.
Be a long time before we recover that investment.
I'm just
but
saying.
Some, you know, but look, that's just something that I think it's a good, healthy lifestyle. You have access to the park, it's what it's for. It's active recreation. My preference would be to pay out that, but, you know.
So looking at the
It
dollar
doesn't seem to be
figures,
popular with politicians.
it looks like you could do the Hartford Bike Trail
And then,
and Benton Park it'll still be within the parameter. So I would put that forward as.
As far as those park enhancements go, I mean, how much, the other thing I want to look at is, do we have liabilities over there? Okay, I hear warm playground equipment, but
Which, I'm sorry.
Freedom Park, are there legitimate liabilities there where,
It's,
I don't want to see somebody get hurt? That's one of the downsides of accepting these grants.
if it were a glaring issue, we would address it
Okay.
during the day-to-day. I think our thought process has been, thought process is obviously to invest in things that reduce our cost going forward. So obviously, yes, rubberized mulch costs more upfront, but you reduce your long-term maintenance cost, going forward. You have the same argument, and I use development, for example, when you put in a stretch of side curve, traditionally, it's cheaper than Belgian block, but you can replace Belgian block by the section versus you lose a section of curve, you gotta replace that section. So, our thought process is obviously what's our long-term cost when you look at things going forward. And we're doing that in a multitude of ways in neighborhoods where we have open spaces and things. Do we need to maintain it the way we have? How do we reduce the maintenance cost but continue to keep the aesthetics appropriate? So,
You talk about a 2-year plan, that could be the second plan. As long as it's items that can wait a year.
yeah, I mean, this list is extensive, and you can develop it like a road list. Each year, you might get something to add to it that you at least have a revolving target of what you're going to look to do. And if there are grant opportunities that are all ready to go, staff knows, all right, that's next. Move on it, so to speak.
So what are we gonna do to move forward? Are we gonna
There's a resolution that you just we have to fill the blanks in tonight, ready for you to go, that was listed, and attached. So, you just plug the amount in, which are going to
110-2013.
We're going for the max, and then a description, and basically what we'll do is we'll insert the descriptions that we provided into that for the resolution. The application will get into much more detail.
Well, the question is, which project, because we have to specify projects.
Right.
So what are we gonna specify? We're gonna specify some amount for the Hartford Bike Trail, some amount for Freedom Park, and some amount for Bendy Park, or?
I would probably, it sounds like Bendy's the more immediate need, right? Based on, what's your opinion about that as manager? I'm just looking at.
My opinion is the resolution can be both.
Right.
The application is going to detail it.
Right.
So you can just name both.
Let's say we put 3 or 4 of them.
I gotta say, I kind of feel like we're just freaking spending money to spend money. It drives me crazy. It really, like,
No, we're getting money back that we pay out anyway.
That's the part that I have to
I
keep
mean,
in balance.
we get next to nothing back of the collective taxes that this township
I
pays.
just want to pay down debt.
Between
That's all I
county
want.
taxes, income taxes, sales taxes, we get back nothing. I mean, effectively nothing. If you round it, it'd be nothing. We get back 0. So to get back $250,000 off the county that we pay them anyway, I don't have a problem applying for it and getting it back and spending it. And you might say, well, gee whiz, that's counterproductive. That's what got us to where we are. We got 17 trillion in debt. Yes, you're absolutely right. But the point is, if I don't apply for it, somebody else will, and somebody else will get it. And then we get less than nothing back of what we pay out.
And we really don't think if we apply to pay down debt that we've incurred because of other projects, they'll say no. Like, don't Republicans want to pay, isn't it
No,
Republican?
they're not gonna approve it. It's not part of the parameters.
But they're conservative. All right, I'll stop.
I understand your point, I agree with your point. However, the point is that if we don't apply for it, someone else will apply for it and get that money, and you're gonna be paying for it anyway. It's just that you're gonna get no benefit from it.
I know, it just, look, again, Max, I would say out of the list that were provided, the things that would be the bike trail, because we can use it to deal with some existing initiatives we have. We've got an investment of labor from outside people, volunteers.
Based on the question posed, I would recommend Bendy first, with the residual going to Harker Crossing. And anything not in Harker Crossings this time would be at least in the queue for next time, plus one of these other projects.
That works for me.
So over the next couple of months, I'll ask council to review this list, and we'll try to prioritize those, and then as we get other suggestions and ideas, put them into the queue, so to speak. We have a revolving list like a road program would be. You have that revolving list.
What's township's cost share?
You do not need to put any cost share in whatsoever.
So what are we applying for?
Well,
To
there's
have a
no-
cost share or not have a cost share?
There's no
When I
cost
sit
share.
down, I mean, even the engineering costs can be
Again,
a part of the grant. So,
No cost share is the answer to that.
yeah.
that's
If the council's
all I want to know. Again,
Direction is no cost share.
No cost share.
Then that's the way we write the grant application.
All right, so Bendy first, and then
We
Harper.
spend the money we get. I mean, the point is though, if you've got a project that you start that ends up costing more than the $250 or whatever you're gonna get, then,
it doesn't get done, and then we're on the hook. for-
well, it either doesn't get done or you gotta shell it out and finish the project. Okay? I mean, because if there's an immediate need to finish it right then and there, or if you can defer it till the next year, till you get more money, fine. But I mean, otherwise, I mean, if there's an immediate need to do it.
Well, we, as part of the grant application, we have to put in cost budget estimates, and
Right.
there has to be professionals who have to, attest to that. So it's not just somebody pulling kind of numbers out that are not realistic. But even
Understood.
when we apply for the grant, if we are successful in being awarded the grant, the council would still have the ability, if the numbers were refined and it was not within, there was additional cost to the project, you could always, not accept the grant and not do the project, so to take on additional debt at the point where the grant award is made in the township.
So, to summarize, the resolution 110-2013, what we would plug in, whereas the governing body of Township of Medford desires to obtain county municipal park development program funds in the amount of $250,000 to fund the Bendy Park, I'm calling it enhancement project, and Hartford Bike Trail project. Whereas the total cost of the project, including all matching funds, is estimated to be $250,000.
That's fine.
That's fair enough. Resolution.
Okay.
Call for a motion, or?
No, we're gonna do that under.
It's
So
on
they
the
probably
consent.
consent. Okay.
Already started that,
I
yeah.
don't think,
We might as well pull it under the consent agenda, because I'm not in favor of it. So, we need to do a vote separately on that resolution.
Okay, we can do that.
So call, should we have a motion now?
I would pull it and vote on it.
Officially pull it?
Yeah, we'll do it
You
then.
still, the discussion items, and then you have public comment.
Yeah,
There you go.
we'll do it then.
Yeah.
I don't want to vote on anything till we've had public comment, other than the housekeeping. So,
Okay, that's done, we're done with
all right,
park grant, right?
okay.
Anything else?
Anything else on that? No? Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Did I tell you they want to use to pay down debt, or?
No, but you can fill me in on your healthy lifestyle and discuss the next item. Smoking prohibition discussion for township property.
hell, I'm gonna come that way.
All right, so we have a proposed ordinance, and I think we've discussed this matter before, and I know that there are some individuals who have strong feelings one way or another
We should throw some 32-ounce sodas on here too.
Big gulp? Okay. I'm okay with that too. It's okay with me. So we've got a proposed ordinance.
I'm opposed to it. I don't see the need to tell people what to do.
Okay. All right. How do you feel?
I think we've discussed this ad nauseum. We're gonna put forth the ordinance,
Well, and I think part of the issue is, I mean, obviously, we can put up all the signs in the world, but as the police chief has told us, unless there's an ordinance backing it up, it really means nothing from his ability to enforce. He has nothing to enforce. So, we can put up a sign and say that there's no smoking, and if that person decides to smoke, even if the police officer comes over to them, they can tell the police officer, well, I'm gonna smoke anyway, and there's nothing you can do about it.
See, I don't know. I choose to naively believe that amongst good neighbors who, when asked politely, hey, would you mind, my kids are here, would you mind smoking over there, the most reasonable people would say yes. And frankly, our society is founded on the whole concept that we're free, and the reason there's a requirement for our freedom, and that requirement is that we abide by a certain social contract which requires decency towards one another. And I guess we have an alternative. We can throw up a white flag and say, sorry, we're not going to be decent to each other, so let's just continue to make laws, to restrict our freedom because, frankly, I don't trust my neighbor to be polite to me. I just choose not to live that way. I don't want to pass it.
We can make the same argument about stop signs and traffic lights and,
The public safety threat out there. And there's something about order and process.
All I'm gonna suggest is you take a walk over to one of the parks we talked tonight and walk around and look at the ground that we're trying to maintain. That's all I'm gonna say.
I can appreciate the maintenance component. I can't take that away. My thoughts. Calm down. You might want to put this off for another meeting.
well, how do you feel?
I've said it before, I'm in favor of it.
Okay.
I agree with what the chief said, that they need something to be able to enforce. And I've seen it be a problem, and I agree with Matt for saying. I think we've limited the way that this proposed ordinance is limited. I think it's a fair use of our legislative power.
You know how I feel.
Well, you have two options. Obviously, we can put it on the next meeting and one of you is missing, and obviously that could be a swing vote. I don't know, I don't want the council to move ahead on something when there's not consensus to do it and have staff continue to put this in front if it's not gonna go any further.
Okay.
So I don't know.
We can do that.
And I would concur with the manager, unless you're gonna have 5 members of the governing body here, I wouldn't recommend
I think it's enough
placing it
that
on the agenda to move it.
I actually agree with that. Let's wait for the full body, because if it's something that affects all community, everyone should be here to vote for, just on vacation.
I don't disagree with you, because I don't think we're doing anything more than what's already in place that has no enforcement authority. All we're doing is memorializing and giving the chief some enforcement authority, which should already be happening anyway. So that's why I don't have a problem with it. Now, my view where, we ban it everywhere, including in people's houses, that's a little overreaching, I think, so I mean, again, I don't think that's valid, but, we're not doing that here. This is a little less, this is more flexible.
I have to like this moment, good cigar. That's great.
Okay. Is that all part of that healthy lifestyle?
Yes.
So if we put it on for the next meeting, we could, as a proposed ordinance.
I would list it as introduction and the council will roll the dice and whatever you're voting.
Yeah, I think we all are expected to be here for this meeting, right? So, no, wait.
I won't be here, but that's okay, you know how I feel.
Yeah.
I'll call in and vote, how's that?
I'm sure we shall allow that.
Okay.
Put it on for the 16th? I'll be here for
16th
the
or the 2nd?
Put it on for the 16th.
I'll put it on for the 16th.
Or is it 16th?
16th.
7:16. Thank you.
All right, next item, y'all done with it?
Yeah, we're
All right. Restricting the ability of lobbyists from holding elected or appointed positions. That's your baby.
This is my thing. One of the things that occurred to me as I was just looking at where we're spending our money and how the township got to where we are today, it occurs to me that we have a problem. And one of the problems is that the state of New Jersey allows the party chair of one of the parties, for example, in our case, our Republican Party, our party chair is a paid professional lobbyist. What that means is that there's an organization that this person owns and professionally gets paid to influence politicians. I think it's a great venture, it's a good business. I appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit that causes someone to go out and have their own business, but I think it causes a conflict when that person is also in charge of, or at least has great influence of, who's going to become the person who holds the party place on the ballot. See, if I get paid to influence somebody and I also determine who's in that ballot position, it creates a conflict. I personally, if I were in that position of owning a company and then making that decision, I would find it pretty hard to resist taking a look at what my interests were. And I think that what we need to do is encourage our state lawmakers to recognize that there's a potential conflict there and ask them to do what New York did, make it an ethics issue where if you're being paid to lobby politicians, you should have absolutely no influence in who holds that office. I think it's a major ethics problem. I think when we look at what are the things that we face as New Jersey taxpayers, we pay the highest taxes in the United States and probably some of the highest property taxes in the world. And from my perspective, I think one of the things that contributes to that is, we have a lack of representation because of undue influence of special interests. I want to urge our state lawmakers, and I've spoken to a couple of them and they do seem to be in favor of it, privately, we'll see how they act publicly, to go ahead and clarify our ethics rules that says, you can't get paid for influencing politicians and decide who's going to hold office at the same time. I don't think that I would find very many voters who would disagree with that notion. It's not a Republican-Democrat issue. I think it's a common sense issue. I think we need to get influence out of government so that people can act based on ideology and not financial pressure. So that's the extent of why I want the resolution passed. Now, I'm asking the governing body to join me in passing the resolution that I had drawn up so that we can send it off to all the other townships in New Jersey as well as the state assembly, senate, and the governor's office as a way of trying to move this thing forward.
Okay. How do we feel about this? I think I know how you feel. How about you?
So I hear what you're saying. I appreciate your position. I don't have a problem with your position. My issue with it is that you have every right in the world as a resident, as a citizen of the state to take that opinion. I don't necessarily think that this is a municipal issue. That the governing body of the municipality should be recommending, asking, demanding, telling, however you say it, the state legislature to adopt or enact a statute that doesn't necessarily directly, and I understand what you're saying about how it does, but directly impact the municipality. I view our role here as councilmen as limited to issues that directly impact municipalities.
Yeah, that's probably our only area of disagreement. My view is that my view is that I've seen the impact that it's had. Now, I'll say the responsibility for the problems that Medford has had lies solely with the voters and the residents of Medford. We elect our representatives, and elections have consequences. So when we make a decision to elect people, we get what we deserve, right? We vote for people, and they serve us, and if we're not paying attention, it's our fault. But one of the roles that I think I have as an elected representative is not just the primary role is definitely to take care of township business, right? We would agree on that. But I think one of the roles that I do have is to be an advocate for the citizens. So I'm the closest person in an elected position that they have to their home. I'm the most, not me personally, but this office is there as an advocate for them at the ground level. I observe things here at this level that someone at the state may not necessarily see. The impact that undue influence has on politics, is quite personal here at home. We see it when we pay our taxes. As the township council, it's our job really to set policy which collects your taxes. When we pay those taxes to the state, if I see that there's something undue influence that's causing those taxes to escalate, I think it's my obligation to notify the state what those influences are and to advocate on behalf of the residents that I represent. Hey, this is a problem, it's affecting us, we need you to address this. So I do think it's a legitimate role, and I think issue advocacy is one of the things that we should be doing. But you're right, it's not a primary role. I would agree with you there, but it is a role.
Right, and it's one that you're free to pursue outside of your role
Well,
as council.
I've done that in a quite personal way, but I also think that I'm elected to advocate for my residences as well. In other words,
Mr. Roney, if I may, in some respects, I agree with Mr. Beanstalk that, it's not our job to tell the state how to do their job. You would think that they would know, but they demonstrated repeatedly by legislative action that they really don't understand the issues that face the public. I'm a perfect example, living proof that if you don't agree or if you don't toe the line, you're not going to serve in public office. It's no secret that I don't much care for the way my government works, and I think my government's broken, and that's why I got involved in this process. But through that process, I made some people upset or angry, and some of those people are at the county level. I have not necessarily reached the state level unless you call telling the governor to stay out of Medford as it relates to property tax increases and allow the voters in Medford to make that decision. I've pretty much stayed out of it. The issue in regards to this resolution is a simple one. The people that fund, the people that decide who our elected representatives are, and let's be honest, the public does vote and they get to vote, but they're influenced by the people that have the ethics issues, okay? I've met way too many unethical people in politics since I got involved. I'm in favor of this resolution, and without further discussion, I ask the mayor to put forward, put it to a vote. Let's tell the state to stop.
Do we have a draft resolution?
Yes.
yes. Want me to read it?
There's part of your discussion item.
All right, well, let me,
Move it into a consent agenda or do the vote separately, it doesn't matter.
well, again.
I think we need to do the vote, so.
Yeah, I'd like it to be outside of consent.
Well, that's fine, but in addition, I mean, we are missing a member, and, quite frankly, just like we did on the smoking prohibition.
I agree.
Put it on the.
I think that he should have an opportunity to weigh in. I mean, I think that Councilman Beanstalk has some valid points here. I mean, although I agree with, the concept here, I mean, and I agree in principle that absolutely lobbyists shouldn't be able to hold any type of position, where they
Elected
influence,
or
where they influence, you know, who is going to be running for office. I agree with that in total. I'm sort of, you know, struggling with the concept of, is that our duty to put forth this? So, I mean, I'd like to consider it more myself, you know, before we put it to a vote. And I think, you know, we should have Councilman Watson, who's not here as well, to weigh in on it as well. So let's do it as a full body.
It's fine by me. Main thing is, and
I don't have a problem with putting it forward. I mean,
there is another component too, and that is, you know, the public doesn't necessarily know that this goes on. They don't understand all the issues that surround, you know, why their government is so broken. Now, that's the public's responsibility. They should know this. People should know who's out there doing what with their money, but unfortunately, we allow ourselves to be preoccupied. So, you know, I absolutely think it's you know, and there's a number of items where we have told the state, we agree with the decision you make, we don't agree with the decision you make, we want you to pass this resolution, we don't want you to pass this resolution. The only difference is now I'm saying, okay, this isn't a resolution you're even considering, but I want you to consider it. But this is a problem that has had, in my opinion, has had a direct and immediate and devastating impact on my community, and I want it to end. I personally don't think, you know, that this is an acceptable situation that we have right now. And as a Republican, frankly, I'm ashamed.
Okay, all right, and again, I agree with you with a lot of the things you've said, in terms of, you know, I mean, the idea of this is quite frankly, it's important to me that a lobbyist would be able to influence those type of things, but we all know it happens all the time. And again, from our
And, you know, and this is coming off the heels where how many tens of thousands of dollars were dumped into an election?
right, well, I understand that, but in terms of our role, I mean, we pass resolutions.
Where did that money come from?
Oh, we pass resolutions all the time from a mechanic standpoint that, while they have some impact on us, don't directly impact us, where we support various things that come down the pike. So, I mean, from that perspective, I look at it and say, well, maybe it is our role, but again, from what Councilman Beanstalk said, you know, I look at it and say, is it really something that we personally advocated by an individual versus the governing body?
I represent the aggregate people.
Understood.
I'd like to represent.
Understood. All right, anything else on this? So we're gonna move to,
Just so we're clear, this is not a personal issue for me. It's an ethical issue.
no, understood. Absolutely.
You meant the personal advocacy versus.
Right. No, I understand it's not a personal issue, but I'm saying, you know, something that should be advocated from a personal standpoint versus a governing body. That's all.
Well, like you said, we have a state organization called the New Jersey League of Municipalities, and they were established. They're actually a whole statewide organization established so that we municipalities could band together and tell our state, we're not going to stand for your nonsense. When North Jersey advocates for something that serves North Jersey and North Jersey alone, and the people that run campaigns go, oh, they're a big voting bloc and I need their money and their vote, we're going to give them whatever they want. It happens every day. It's the League of Municipalities that say, whoa, 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 hold on a second. And they ask municipalities, governing bodies, just like us to weigh in. It absolutely is our responsibility. Anybody that thinks for a moment that if we don't take an active role, we're going to be run roughshod over, is kidding themselves. I don't believe passing this resolution will make a hill of beans in Trenton. They're not even going to read it. They're not even going to bother. A couple local press entities might pick it up, but honestly, at the end of the day, that legislature is not even going to look at it. They're not even going to bother with it. Unless somebody beats the drum constantly and makes it so uncomfortable for them that they have to address a legitimate issue. That's the only way things get changed. What's the biggest issue in the state of New Jersey? What's the number one issue for every single resident in the state of New Jersey? The biggest problem, not as an individual, but collectively as an entire state of people. What's the biggest problem we got?
Taxes.
There. It's not my perception, it's not my opinion, it's the public's opinion. One of the biggest cost drivers, one of the largest cost drivers to your property taxes is the legislation that your state legislature hands us to operate under. You have to do it this way, even though it costs you 5 times as much, you have to do it this way. Some of it's public safety, some of it's legitimate, the majority of it, I'm sorry. Somebody didn't do their job locally, and that's why we're in the condition we're in. Again, I don't mean to get on this stump, but this is absolutely an issue, and again, I'll stop. We need all 5 members.
All right, next item is the Burlington County Energy Aggregation Program.
Burlington County is committed to take the lead in notifying county residents and businesses about the energy aggregation program. If council recalls in the public, late last year, we had a representative, a vendor who came in and spoke to council about it. Council at the time deferred it into 2013. There was some questions asked of staff. We reached out to the ratepayer advocate. He never responded back, and we asked the BPU to confirm the list of vendors, which we did get, and that was provided to council. We have not gotten back to it, and since then the county's gotten more involved because more and more municipalities are now taking an interest. And from, I guess, a perspective that obviously the bigger the pool, the more the scale of economies of scale could weigh in on this and make it more lucrative than just a town standing on its own. So if the town, if Medford is interested in participating in that process and letting the county take the lead, the county would like to know by July. My suggestion is to let them use your tax dollars to let them take it and get a coalition together and see how that coalition plays out.
Yeah, my thought on this, I mean, I think it's a great idea, the program itself, the concept of buying as a collective, aggregate buy, you're gonna save money. I don't like none of us, you've made it pretty clear, like the opt-out portion of it, where, it's move unless you say not to. The way that I would want to address that is a non-binding referendum. Letting it go to a non-binding referendum. In other words, ask the town, do you want to buy your electricity together? Do you want to try to save money by everybody buying their electricity together and put it to a vote? We've got, 3 elections now? I'm going to get into that. But, we've got 3 upcoming elections where people can make a decision and can weigh in. Is this something that, as a township, that let the residents decide, do they want to be part of a program where they would have to opt out? And it's the closest that I can come to at least giving people a voice. To me, personally, I would love to be able to buy electricity as a township or as a county, because then I'll save money, and I like saving money.
All right, well, we have a deadline in July to let them know.
As I understand it, it's not binding if you allow the county to start doing their due diligence.
I'm okay with that.
And you still have time, if Mr. Boney's suggestions, you actually go to referendum, you still have time.
Or maybe recommend the county do it.
The target implementation date, according to the materials that were in our packet, is January 1st. We think we'll still have time if we have a referendum in November to.
If the town decides to do a referendum, I don't know that the county's gonna wait for the town.
No.
They're gonna move ahead with whoever's interested with them to move ahead. I don't see why you can't pursue both. We can let them know our concerns and what we're considering as a council, as a municipality, but we're willing to come and sit in the process.
Yeah, we can always say no if we don't like the rate that they get. I mean, that to me, they're gonna know.
I didn't interpret it as you're bound by sending them a letter.
So you weren't.
You're not.
Right, so you're not bound by it. I'm just saying, if they're willing to go out and do a lot of the legwork, and we
Sure.
talk when we have the public comment, but simultaneously, you have until probably somewhere in August to decide to send a question.
Yeah, there is a time frame.
Right, 60 days.
60 days prior to, so you still have time to make that decision as well.
It's something that I would be interested in exploring, so if they're gonna pursue it, my view would be to tell them yes.
So if council's inclined, we'll send a letter, look, we're interested, here's some of what our thoughts, because we did talk about this in 2012,
Right.
and we may consider going to a non-binding referendum and asking our community their position in this.
So it's more of a way of just informing people, so.
Do we know what our deadline is to get it on the ballot?
Count 60 days back from the election. It's
It's
usually.
Well, there's an October election too, there's an August.
No, it's
So
then
you have to use
November.
the general election,
You used to
No,
know,
isn't the October election is a general.
but only for US Senate, not for referendum.
it's typically in August, the first or second week of August is their deadline.
And there's no cost to put that on the ballot.
No, because it's already, it would be, we already have one question going. As long as it's part of that general election.
General election.
If we did a
There'd be
separate
no
one.
cost, right?
Yeah,
Other than, I mean, we have a cost anyway
Yes.
related to that.
but if we had a
We
separate.
have no matter what.
Yeah, no, it's part of the general.
Okay, all right, so there's no separate cost.
No.
What questions on the ballot?
Right.
So we're clear.
All right.
All right, any other
You have,
items?
Resolution 112, 2013, approving the renewal of the liquor licenses from 2013.
Oh, that's right, we're gonna discuss that. Okay. I don't know.
Well, let's explain the process first. There's an annual renewal process. The towns typically can endorse by resolution, but from our perspective, if the state gets no objection of any sort, it's basically, for lack of a better word, rubber stamp. So there are 2 pocket licenses on this that are associated with the Medford Village East that have been ongoing now for 10 years.
Yeah, basically the same principles of Medford Crossings development. Essentially, Mr. Samos holds those 2 pocket licenses which he acquired more than 10 years ago. Those licenses have been inactive for more than 10 years. By state law, the statewide policy is they want those plenary C retail consumption licenses for restaurants, prime liquor licenses. The state wants those liquor licenses to be used. They promote commerce in the state, among other things. And by state law, if a liquor license of plenary C becomes inactive for 2 years, it puts the burden on the holder of the license to make a petition to the director of the ABC to explain when and how it will be put into active use. And in the past, the town, as part of the redevelopment project that was Medford Crossings, saw it possibly moving ahead, didn't pose no objections to the extensions. And the ultimate determination is made by the ABC. They have the jurisdiction, but the ABC routinely grants those extensions unless there's an objection.
Well, I would have an objection here. My view is we've got 2 liquor licenses that, part of the problem that we have is the homeowners and residents bear a high percentage of the tax burden in our town because we have limited, business, right, commercial rateables in town. One of the big areas, like you say, the development of retail and/or dining, recreation type establishments, a liquor license is a very appealing thing. It's been 10 years. My view is, you know what, you haven't built, you've renewed this every year. I would object to the ability for the who holds it now? Let's see, is it MVE is the holder of the license? I would want to file an objection that says, you haven't used those liquor licenses, it's time to cough them up.
It's MVE Restaurants LLC.
So if they haven't used it now, I would want to file an objection and ask the state not to renew those licenses so that we can put them out to bid again.
And the way the process would work, as I understand it, is if that objection is opposed, it would become a contested case, would go to the Office of Administrative Law, and the burden would shift to Mr. Samos to show how that license will become active in the next year. There's one appellate division case which involved a holder of a license that applied for multiple extensions, inactive for multiple years, for a shopping mall that hadn't been built. The intent was to use it with a restaurant, and the director of the ABC, after 3 or 4 extensions, said enough is enough.
Yeah.
They did the contested hearing. The holder of the license did not prove that the license would be used. And the ABC pulled the license. It was taken to the appellate division, and the decision was affirmed.
Well, if there's any proposed development out there for the next year, I certainly don't know.
The other policy consideration is if those licenses, if we follow the same process and we had a similar outcome, the town would have the right to issue 2 new licenses.
I think we're there. I think it's time to, at least, now, what risk do we take in posing an objection? Are we facing a serious risk of
I really don't
litigation?
see any from the standpoint that the ultimate decision is made.
It's with the
by
state, it's really not, we're just filing an
You're
objection.
exercising your right per the statute to object. The
I
state ultimately will make a
The
decision.
town is not revoking the permit, the town
It's a
is
state.
just an objector.
Yeah, I would object to that permit, either of those 2 permits being renewed.
So, just so I understand, the applications were made to the township or to the ABC?
But the application has to be made to the ABC. It has to be copied to the township. It's a petition with a certification. What's interesting is I reviewed the certification that Mr. Samos submitted, and he essentially tried to blame the town for the fact that his project hasn't developed. And we have an appellate division, or a law division,
And judges at the exact
that says that his complaint was dismissed. He has no right to enforce the redevelopment agreements against the township or the redevelopment.
The proposed resolution that's before us, though, has the township approving the application. Is that a procedure?
Well, no, that was in draft.
No, the
I think
township
their
still has to
resolution,
approve the
we still have
renewal.
to approve the renewal.
Yes,
We're
they
saying
have
we
to
don't
approve
object.
it, but
We don't object.
But the state law, as I understand it, the town cannot approve the renewal until the state acts upon the request for the extension on the inactive license.
And that's different than what the person
Right.
who's in charge at ABC told me.
That
We have to
hasn't
act on the
happened yet.
renewal.
That hasn't happened yet? So how, but
Correct.
there's other
They
licenses
petitioned at the
that are
same
signed.
time that they did the
Here's
renewal.
mechanically what would happen. Council would approve resolution 112/2013 with the exception of MVE Restaurants LLC pocket license for those 2.
The two
You would
separate-
withdraw those, you would exclude those from the approval, and we will refund, the town receives a revenue for that, we will refund that. And then you would add a resolution 114 to the draft of the objection resolution that will get submitted to the state.
115.
115,
115. That's how this process mechanically play out. So whoever makes the motion on 112 as amended, only approving those and taking MVE out of it.
So do we
Out
want,
of Schedule A.
and so we don't approve it with an objection, we just pull it off of here and then we file our objection.
What are we refunding?
They have a permit.
There's a
Renewal
renewal
fee.
22 grand compiled for all this.
Right, when they make application for renewal, they have to have a renewal fee to the state and a renewal fee to the township.
Okay. How much is that?
$2,500
Oh, okay.
for each license.
So it's 5,000.
Yes.
But
Why-
the trade-off is if you're
No,
successful.
but do we have to refund it
What
now?
I would,
I would
no,
wait.
but
Or we
I
wait.
would think you would, because you might run into an estoppel situation. But if this, I believe that if the state rejected at the contested hearing, if they ruled for the renewal of the license,
He'd
I
have to-
believe he'd have to pay
He'd still have to pay the
pay the
fee.
money anyway, he had to pay the fee anyway,
Right.
just later.
Yes.
And our process to refund, we still have to send a PO, right? Or
Correct.
we'd have to send a PO anyway, there's a time element.
Mhm.
I don't know how quickly the state would act on this, but, you know, we'll follow our process. If the state has a hearing or not, we'll find out soon enough. They're aware, because we did contact the state, Mr. Norman contacted the state yesterday. They asked for an immediate letter so that they were aware of it, because they're just, like I said, they're just processing, so that they were aware of this, that there was gonna be an objection potential. So we put them on notice. So in that sense, council, again, just so the public understands, Resolution 112 would still be acted on. Schedule A would be modified to remove FBE Restaurants LLC 0320-33-013-001 and 0320-33-012-003 from Schedule A. And then council would vote to add Resolution 115-2013, opposing the petition of MBE Restaurants LLC to the Director of the New Jersey Alcoholic Beverage Commission on a 12:39 ruling for renewal of inactive plenary retail consumption license with broad package versions for license numbers 0320-33-013-001 and 003.
Now, when we get to that, you're gonna read that, right?
I can do it again. I will do it again. Not a problem.
Can we do it that way?
Somebody just
I can't
motion
remember. I
now
really like the motion.
Yeah, he just did, he motioned for it.
to add it.
Second, how do we have to do that?
No, we can't do that. I mean, I'm fine with it.
Why don't we just vote on that as a separate, we'll pull that out.
We'll do that now, yeah, we'll do that when we get to the time. All right. So, that's it for the discussion items then?
NJ American Water?
Oh, I thought we were gonna talk about that in a bit.
Oh, okay, I thought you were just discussing just setting an opposition letter. That's fine. It's part of the waiver request.
I guess we're talking about it now.
I don't really care.
I guess I wasn't sure what the exemption.
Nothing secret about it.
Well, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection has passed a rule that allows towns to request a waiver for certain cost issues. I think the council's been, obviously, we've had discussions relative to the water rate we pay to New Jersey American for water that we believe we don't need based on their modeling and the state requirements. There's a factor of 3 to 1. So for every gallon you use, you have to pay 3, you have 3 in reserve. That's the formula. And the reason is they plan for a catastrophic event. I think it was triggered by the, years ago when we had the drought.
Yeah, we had a drought.
So we pay a lot more than we need, and I think council has been very open about eventually approaching, if this rule went through, sending a letter asking for relief from the contractual limitation. So I can work with Mr. Norman to put that letter.
Well, I'd like to do that, but there's also a provision under the contract where we have to notify them by June 30th
Right.
if we're requesting a reduction in our daily allotment.
So one goes to New Jersey American,
Right.
yeah.
And again, I mean, maybe my tortured interpretation of the contract, but I think there's room for us to make that request of New Jersey American.
I have those all the time.
I'll sit with the utility director.
Councilman Beanstalk may say I'm crazy, but for my interpretation, but I think you can interpret that contract in a way that there's an opportunity for us to at least make the request. They may turn us down,
I'll talk to the utility director regarding what we believe we need and what we're using on an annual basis, and then we'll put the
but,
letter
right, I
together.
mean, it's $600,000 a year.
Okay.
It's a significant amount of money. It's, what, 3% of our budget?
Okay.
Meanwhile, we sit on one of the largest aquifers of water in the entire planet.
All right, so that's,
Can't use that water.
that's a discussion.
This nice treatment center.
Okay.
Don't worry,
Anything
use
else?
that water.
That's all for discussion.
All right,
The
so,
lobbyists is here,
all
I'm
right,
sorry.
we're gonna open the meeting to the public now. Anyone in the public having, any matters to discuss on the agenda or any other business for the township, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I'd like to discuss
Name
with you,
and.
I'm sorry, Charles Markworth, 40 Christopher Mill Road. I'd like to discuss with you the discussion item number 4. I've been sitting back here listening, and I think this council should pass a resolution. If it does anything, it might say, send a message to other municipalities that we're not tolerating conflicts of interest, and maybe if we have more towns looking at Medford taking the first step, maybe they'll do it, and maybe another township will do it, and another township will do it, then maybe the state will get the message. But I do think it could start from down here, start at the municipal level and work its way up. And I think it will send some sort of message. Maybe not right away, but I think it's something that we need. We have a lot of conflict of interest in this state. You hear it all the time, and nobody's doing anything about it. So I think if we take the lead as a town, I think that would be a good thing. So I would encourage this governing body to take a very good look at that and say, let's all be on the same page, and say we're not going to put up with conflicts of interest. And it does affect, I mean, what happens up here, up at the top, does affect us down here. And we just want the right people in the office, and not someone who's getting paid to, and then wind up being able to control what's going on the other end as far as political office. I think that's wrong. And I believe people should make a living, but there's conflict of interest. And the other thing too is about the smoking ordinance. I'm one who enjoys a great cigar. I love to smoke a cigar. I'm one who believes that government shouldn't be in our business, but also when you're talking about a park, such as where families take their kids, I have kids, I wouldn't want someone smoking around the kids. And you have people that do not live in this town that also utilize the park. And I think if we have certain areas within the park that is a non-smoking area, I think that is something that should be looked at, and looked at very carefully. I mean, I enjoy a good cigar, I like to sit out, but I can also do it out in front of my house. Unless the police come and say to me, sorry, you can't smoke, then I take an issue to that, but I don't.
I'd be more inclined to designate specific non-smoking areas and do it the reverse way.
And then the other thing is that when you were talking about the grant and about Ben-Day Field, I think one thing that touches me more than anything is MYAA. They're the one who uses Ben-Day more than anybody. They, and my kids, played soccer a lot. I think they should take more responsibility for the maintenance of the field. Yes, it's a great idea that we get grant money to fix it up, but they use it. Yeah, they pay for the lights, they pay for certain things over here, but I think that ownership should be on that. And anything that MYAA does, also Hartford's Crossing, I think they should stand up and take more ownership on those things. They collect the money. Does the township get anything out of it? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe they don't.
Well,
I don't know that.
we did actually sign a maintenance contract whereby NYA is providing the majority of the maintenance over there with fields.
Yeah, the issue at Bend
Yeah,
is
she-
the underlying infrastructure is still the town's responsibility. We have an agreement with them in which there are some, with every agreement, we have to monitor and keep them on it. But for the most part, this issue that we've identified, the septic system particularly, is our issue. It's really not one for NYA. We own the underlying infrastructure.
But it wouldn't, if it wasn't for them using the soccer field.
Well, I guess, yes, in the grand scheme, but the town, my opinion is the township planning of that facility was inadequate from the get-go. It was designed, the use is more than it was designed to handle from the get-go. I don't know that it was ever done.
Okay, but the maintenance on the bathrooms, having to screw down those steps, I've been over there. The actual turf field is deplorable, and I've walked that
But
field.
the township is ultimately the liable party in that. We own the.
Is there any way we don't,
Sell
not
it.
be,
That's the only way you get out of liability, so.
because they're benefiting from it, and then the town has to fix it. That's
Well,
why,
they've taken over the maintenance of the fields. I mean, Chris was saying ultimately we're responsible if they fall down on the job. Yeah, I mean, we've got to take care of it from a liability standpoint. But I mean, a thing like the steps, I only mentioned that. I mean, it was a weekend. I mean, you can't expect them to run in and,
well, I understand,
And it
that, but
just
just
happened
take more
when I was there.
accountability, would take more responsibility for something that they're using and getting.
yeah, well, you're right. I mean, and those steps probably need to be replaced anyway. I mean, they're in pretty hard condition.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? Okay, motion to close the public portion. Thank you, Randy.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, next item is bill list, the June 5th, 2013 bill list. Anyone have any questions with regard to the bill list? Sure.
Are we adding the item, the partial
Oh,
payment?
you had approved that.
Okay.
That'll actually go on the bill list that's gonna be done
But it'll
tomorrow.
be formal on the next bill list,
Correct.
but you okayed us to do
Got it.
it, yeah.
All right, then, if there's no questions, or if you've got their questions answered previously, do I have a motion to approve the June 5th, 2013 bill list?
Seconded.
Thank you, Jeff, thank you, Chris. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item is ordinances for second reading. It's ordinance 2013-9. Do I have a motion for adoption of ordinance 2013-9?
I move that ordinance 2013-9, amending and supplementing the Medford Township Code to create at section 35-6D to expand the permitted issuance of Class A liquor licenses for limited breweries, restricted breweries, plenary wineries, and instructional winemaking facilities be introduced and passed on second reading.
All right, thank you, Randy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, at this time, I'd like to open the meeting to the public on ordinance 2013-9 to take comments on the ordinance. Anyone like to make any comments on ordinance 2013-9, please step forward.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bob Wagner, 209 Lincoln Avenue, Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm the managing member of Radix Restaurant and Hots Tavern in Medford, New Jersey. Just had some questions and concerns. First off, let me start by saying I would love to have 20 more restaurants, taverns, brew pubs, winemakers, all from down there in New Jersey. The question is what is the value of the license going to be? Okay, my 2 liquor licenses are valued at the books at $750,000 each. Okay, I've heard a lot of people up here talk about return on investment and stuff like that. When we do this, the state supersedes, the ABC supersedes any local municipal ordinance. And last I checked, in order to have a brew pub or a winery, you have to hold a consumption license in the state of New Jersey.
That's correct.
Correct.
That's true with the change in the law.
Right, and so there's all kinds of words and speculation and rumors out there on what we're going to do this at. And nothing against the 2 out-of-pocket licenses and the deeded license that's at the Beau Rivage. But as a business holder and taxpayer in Medford Township, I want to make sure that we all play in a level playing field. I want to have as many businesses in town. We should be better than Collingswood, Mergentville, Hamilton, all the other towns that are out there. But we cannot devalue the current value of our liquor license that we have and we hold in this town. So it's important that we do that. That is my main thing here. We just cannot do that. And if we're going to do it, we all got to play by the same rules. I hold certain insurance regulations. I hold certain things, but I want all these things to happen in this town. but we have to make sure that we don't obviously devalue stuff. So that's all I have to say.
All right.
Okay, can I ask, I don't understand, when you talk about devaluing your license, first of all, you know I love your place.
I've seen you once or twice.
Right, exactly. I think you're doing a great job over there. To me, you emulate what success is about. It's commitment, hard work, and frankly, as a customer, I always feel very welcome at your establishments, and I think you're very successful that way. When you talk about devaluing it, I'm not sure I understand why that would devalue it.
It's all depends on what you're going to place a value on. A beer, a single beer license or a wine license would be. Now, if a liquor license is worth a value of $750,000 in the township of Medford, and you're just going to sell beer or wine, you would probably say, well, let's divide it by 3, so it's only worth, a beer license worth $250,000. Correct? You know, that's what the math would be. But there is, you know, the whole idea of these things go around the state is, it's really, you read one law one way, I read it another way.
Right.
So it's all different. But at the end of the day, the state has been set up where, you know, there's a census set out there where it's at 1 in every 3,000 people is where you have a liquor license.
Sure.
And so you can go and get more. It's like what Cherry Hill did, you know, went up to $1.4 million, then it came down to 900, and then went for a bid to 500,000. Now it's up to like, I think 850 is the average right now. Same with in Deal, New Jersey. But you can't devalue the license you have. We have 2 out-of-pocket licenses that are worth, well, we'll say, nobody sells a liquor license in the state less than what the last one sold for. Last one sold for $750,000. I bought 2 of them. So you can't diminish or devalue the town asset. What we have, we want to sell them again.
One of the powers that the town has is when they put the license, if they were to put a license out for bid, we got a new license issue, we set a minimum price.
Absolutely correct, you could. And then it goes a bid. Same as a brew pub. You want to put a brew pub license out, you have to say this is the minimum bid.
Right, and
make a bid on it.
right, this license wouldn't be permitted, you couldn't have a brew pub of this type. This is strictly for manufacturing.
Right. But in order to have a brew pub in the state of New Jersey, you have to have a consumption license with it. It's on page 10. I have
In order to have a brew
actually
pub,
give you a
right,
whole
you're
copy.
serving food and, right.
No, it doesn't matter if you want to serve food or not. I have a copy of the ABC manual here. I can give it to your solicitor if you'd like.
That was what I understood as well, yeah.
Yeah. You have to have a C license. So in order to have it happen, no matter, I'm not legal, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not educated, I'm just a bar guy. But in order to have it, you got to have a C license, as it states right now from Trent. And all I'm saying is, I would love to have all this. I'll buy a brew pub license tomorrow. I'll give you a credit card tonight. And we can do that.
Actually, this is one thing the law says that normally you can only have 2 plenary licenses, but you're allowed to have 10 brew pub licenses with the plenary. So you can exceed you're allowed to have 2 in the whole state. With the license, you can have more than 2, but I wouldn't imagine you'd have 10 brew pubs in that.
So your problem with the ordinance is the use of the word brew pubs?
It's not a problem. My whole main concern is to make sure is the value of the liquor license is not going to be diminished in the township.
That,
That's
Well, this is just a reading.
that value is tied to what we can sell the license
That's the
for.
market for it.
It's
Correct.
my intention, and I can't speak for the rest of the governing body. It's my intention to set that minimum bid at a reasonable dollar amount that won't lead to the devaluation of the license that already exists. So again, in regards to devaluation, if the market drives it to sell for $1.2 million and the bidders bid and it ends up at $2 million,
Medford wins.
there you go. So I do understand your concern. I don't think that this ordinance at this time is really going to have an impact.
There's another side of this too that, you know, I have to look at from my perspective. My perspective is, you know, one of the things that we're charged with is making decisions on behalf of the population of Medford Township, 23,000 people approximately, right? We're almost at 24. Get another liquor license in. And I appreciate when I hear I think what you're not saying, I need you to protect my investment. What you're saying is that there's a potential to damage, that we could have an economic loss. But I would say to you that having a destination that brings people in, my hope, and quite honestly, when I look at something like this, my thought is this is going to help your business. I don't see this having a detrimental effect on the people who have invested in a liquor license because we're hoping to draw more people here. The way that I understand this type of facility, it is basically a place where, you know, somebody's manufacturing beer, and if you want to come in and get a growler and bring it home or bring it to a BYOB, that's exactly what you can do. I'm hoping that you're in close proximity to a brewery, and maybe, you know, it would be something you would serve, that there would be close working together with local restaurants and establishments to build up this town, to make it a resource that doesn't just serve the local residents, but draws people in from the outside. So I don't understand the value thing, because you can't do all the things that you can do with the other license. You know what I mean? You have an advantage as a foods establishment if you can serve alcohol as well, and not just for people who like beer, but, you know, I hear women drink vodka and bring beer. Just, you know, that's been my observation, right, when I'm in place. Not everybody drinks beer. So this is really a smaller audience. It's not necessarily the general public.
I agree with what you say, Mr. Brown. I agree 100%, and I would love to have it. All I'm trying to say is that the value of a license, you have to have a C license with it, okay? Is that we cannot devalue the current licenses in town. And what I think the board, probably a lot of people do not realize here, is that there is a deed license that's still out there over Vonch, that you guys have the rights to, I don't know what the proper word is, undeed or deed, whatever they want to do, but there's a license there that's going to go away very shortly, unless you do something with it. Okay, but you know, we could go out and do a census and get a license. My main concern is I would love to have a brew pub downtown. I would love to have 20 downtown. I'd love to have all the restaurants you could possibly dream of. All my other locations that I have and I own have tons of restaurants around it,
Right, exactly.
and do millions more dollars than what
Right.
Medford does.
Sure.
But we don't allow that in this township right now. But what we can't do is take a liquor license that's worth this much and then sell a brew pub license at this thing. That's what the concern is on the street right now. I represent all the other license holders that are out there.
He's making a very simple point. He's worried about devaluing a license that has more flexibility. His license has, he can serve other things other than just beer. He's saying that the value has to be set accordingly for that consumption license, that C license.
With the
In
plenary C, you have to
relationship.
have that with the brew pub anyway, so I don't see how you, I don't see how you
Yeah.
have that risk, that you're always serving beer and wine.
No,
Because
he
if you
just
have
wants-
a plenary C, you have a right to serve the vodka.
You can serve whatever you want if you have a plenary seat, absolutely correct. But what I think what's missing here, and certain people understand, is that in order to have a brew pub in Township of Medford or anywhere else, you have to buy a C license. I want to have a brew pub, okay? But you gotta buy what I want, 2 times.
Understood.
That's all I'm asking.
Right.
That's all.
In order to have a brew pub.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
In that brew pub, you can also sell spirits and wine.
Right.
Same thing. But in order, the way it works in the state is that's what you have to do, but for some reason,
We
I
can't
think
override that state law. That's not-
absolutely correct.
That's not what
State
we're
law
trying to do.
supersedes.
Yeah, that's not what.
And that's all I wanted to make sure
Now,
that
this
everybody's
is-
aware of.
My thought was this is basically for manufacturing.
I want it, believe me, it can't, you can't
I'd like to
have,
have 5 of them.
if that was the case, the Flying Fish would have stayed where they were, I mean, they move things around. It's all different around here, so. My main concern is just protecting the value of our liquor license in town, that's all. In the future ones, hopefully we can get more business out here.
So, you don't like the ordinance for that reason, or you just want to make sure that we're not
I
looking
think
to...
the main thing is that I had to make sure that we just got into, that we knew that, I like the ordinance, I want to have it down there, it has nothing against it allowing a brew pub in town. The main thing is that making sure that everybody's aware of the value of a liquor license in this town.
Okay,
Because that's my main thing.
sure.
That's all.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? All right, if not, I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting with regard to the ordinance. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Randy. All those in favor?
Aye.
have to
Roll call.
Call me a roll call and close the public?
We've always,
Yes.
Norman.
Let's keep going, roll call.
Yes.
All right, that's fine. All right, let's have a roll call and close the public hearing.
Mr. Beanstalk?
Aye.
Mr. Pace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Ballmer?
Aye.
Mayor Checker?
Aye. All right, so any other council comments on the ordinance? If not, do I have a motion to adopt, oh, we already have that. All right, so do I have a roll call? I need a roll call vote to adopt ordinance 2013-9.
Mr. Beanstalk?
Aye.
Mr. Pace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Ballmer?
Aye.
Mayor Checker?
Aye. All right, so the ordinance is passed. Okay, we have no ordinances for first reading. So we'll move on to the consent agenda resolutions, and we have a number of modifications.
Okay, my notes reflect we've pulled number 6, resolution 110, 2013, authorizing Medford Township to apply for funding under the 2013 Williamson County Municipal Park Development Program, as inserted from the discussion item to have a separate vote. Also, resolution 112-2013, approving renewal of a liquor license, and that has one modification. Schedule A will reflect the removal of MVE based on the two numbers of 0320-33-013-001 and 003. And council needs to vote to insert resolution 115-2013 to the agenda, a resolution by Medford Township Council opposing the petition of MVE Restaurants LLC to the Director of the New Jersey Alcohol Beverage Commission on 12:39 ruling for renewal of inactive plenary retail consumption licenses with broad package privilege for license numbers 0320-33-013-001 and 0320-33-012-003.
Okay. All right, so, let's deal with the individual items first. All right, let's deal with resolution 110-2013, authorizing Medford Township to apply for funding under the 2013 Burlington County Municipal Park Development Program. All right, do I have a motion? And we're going to do a roll call.
Mhm.
Do I have a motion to approve or adopt resolution 110-2013?
So
Thank you, Chris. Do I have a second?
second.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, can I have a roll call vote on the resolution 110-2013?
Mr. Beanstalk?
Aye.
Mr. Pace?
No.
Deputy Mayor Ballmer?
Aye.
Mayor Checker?
Aye. All right, so the resolution passes. Now we'll deal with resolution 112-2013. It's going to be modified to remove the approval, let's repeat it, right? It's approval, renewal, or liquor license 2013-2014. We're going to remove the two items with regard to MV Restaurants LLC. And we have resolution 115-2013 that is to, I guess, state our objection to renewal of the liquor licenses with regard to the two pot licenses for MV Restaurants LLC. Should we do these separately, or?
No, I think we can just do part of the consent agenda, can we not? Just
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
amendment.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think council's on board with their.
All right.
I move for approval of the
All right.
consent agenda, resolution 112-2013 being amended, and resolution 115-2013 being added.
Okay, all right, do I have a second? All right, thank you, Jeff. Why don't we just do, all right, so we're going to amend those first, and then we'll do the consent agenda.
We just amending the consent.
Okay, all right, all right, well, we haven't done the consent agenda, so, all All those in favor of amending, what is it, 1/12/2013 and 115, or adding 115-2013? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, so let's go through the resolution 105-2013, approving change order number 1, Video Pipe Services, Inc., Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. Resolution 106-2013, authorizing the cancellation of certain grant-funded reserve balances. Resolution 107-2013, amending the Township of Medford 2013 year municipal budget by the insertion of a special item of revenue and appropriation from the state of New Jersey, Clean Communities Grant. Resolution 108-2013, approving change order number 1, J.P. Smith Contractors, Inc., aerobic digesters ribbon removal and painting project. Resolution 109-2013, authorizing Medford Township to accept funding under the 2013 Municipal Alliance Program. We've already voted on Resolution 110-2013. Resolution 111-2013, approving the terms of the new collective negotiations agreement between the Township of Medford and the Medford Township Senior Officers Association.
Mayor,
Yes.
just so you know, that titles actually should be Medford Township Superior Officers Association.
Right. Medford Township Superiors Officers Association. That's Resolution 111-2013. Resolution 112-2013, approving renewal of liquor license 2013-2014 as amended. Resolution 113-2013, approving change order number 1, South State Inc., Route 70 and Hartford Road Improvement Project. Resolution 114-2013, resolution by Medford Township Council authorizing acceptance of warranty agreement with Adirondack Energy Conservation LLC by assignment from Solar Works, New Jersey. And Resolution 115-2013, objection to renewal of plenary licenses. You want to add in the rest, or?
Read that again. Medford Township Council opposing the petition of MB Restaurants LLC to the Director of the New Jersey Alcoholic Beverage Commission on a 12:39 ruling for renewal of inaccurate plenary retail consumption licenses with broad baggage privilege for license number 0320-33-013-001 and 0320-33-012-003.
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion for approval of consent agenda resolutions as modified?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item, resolution ES 06-18-2013, executive session. 2 items, actually, we don't have 3 anymore. Discuss New Jersey Board. Matters relating to litigation, negotiations, and the attorney-client privilege, Pinelands Branch Library, and matters relating to the purchase, lease, acquisition of real property or the investment of public funds, 6 Elm Court, Block 3002, Lot 11. Do I have a motion to? No, that's it. We don't have anything else, right? That's it, just those 2 items. We took New Jersey American Water, we discussed it. Do I have a motion for approval of ES 06-18-2013?
So moved.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Chris. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. This should be relatively quick. No?
Anticipate action.
Action may or may not be taken.